Yeah, nice one to Dave, giving a very thorough explanation of all things Everton accounts there. So we don't have to talk about it that much because I don't think it's anyone's really. You've got to be a very specific type of football fan to delve deep into that kind of stuff. But it's interesting nonetheless. That joining me now to talk about that and a little bit more on pitch stuff. Les Roberts and Pete McFarlane. How are we doing, lads? Pete, have you well, I suppose you've not really had a break from Everton during this international break, have you? You've been off watching the girls, and it's not been much better for them either.
No, I don't feel like I ever get a break, to be honest, Matt. Even like you say, during the international breaks, I'm going to watch the women's team, and unfortunately, our season has been on par with the men's in terms of a lot of disappointing results. But yeah, I think I'm just a glutton for punishment, to be honest.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. And Les, you're here as well, mate. What have you done during the international break? Have you been watching any other footy, or have you just tried to completely switch off from it all?
I've swerved a lot completely. Do you know what? It's been lovely to switch off. I saw the advert for the weekend's games on Sky the other day, and my heart sank. And I felt so gutted because I've never felt this bad. I don't think, when I'm really like, the weekend's games are coming up, and you're just like, you know what? That was really nice. Because I didn't even bother with the international stuff or anything. And even Hoyle's game got called off last Saturday. So I literally had no football at all to worry about. And it's been quite nice.
Yeah, I've watched a bit of the internationals, but, it has sort of been nice to try and detox and stay away from it all. But, I mean, the time has come to talk about them, unfortunately, lads. So we will get into speaking about the team a little bit later on. But just very quickly on the account, obviously we did a bit of a deeper insight there with Dave on it, but I mean, it doesn't make for great reading, does it, Pete? I mean, it's not the numbers. I think it doesn't take an expert to look at those numbers and go, this is not a very well-run football club.
No, it's certainly not a very, very well-run football club. And it's concerning as well that this is not just something that's happened over the past year. We can't purely blame COVID on it. This is something that I think a lot of us have seen coming for a long time. We've had record losses on the bounce. We found it difficult to raise any kind of revenue in terms of player sales. We've got players on big contracts who are happy to see out their contracts, which means it's difficult to move those players on and to recoup any kind of money. Certainly, the investment that we've made on the field hasn't been good enough, which is reflected in lower revenue because of league finishes. It doesn't make for good reading, and certainly when you bear in mind that our owner is a billionaire accountant, you'd expect the accounts to be one of the things that we could do well, but clearly not. It is a concerning time, but I mean, certainly in terms of the financial fair play, we've obviously been in discussions with the Premier League, so hoping that we can stay within any kind of guidelines that they've given us. But certainly it's going to be an interesting summer. First priority is to stay in this league and then go from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's standard, isn't it, Les? It must be. It's probably difficult to lose nearly 400 million over 3 years if you tried when you've got as much income as a Premier League football club, and to be sat here with that number at that level. And I think it's only supposed to be 100 million, isn't it, to fall in line with FFP and obviously profit and sustainability rules. But that is a staggering figure for an organisation that is, playing in one of the most lucrative environments in the world to have lost over that time.
I am waiting to see a video emerge of Bill Kenwright and Farhad Moshiri doing that thing at the end of Trading Places, where they're saying, so it's like a cross between Trading Places and Brewster's Millions. So it's like he's got to lose this. Everyone's got to lose this amount of money in this amount of time, and they're having a bet. I bet you can't do that. It's insane. As Pete said as well, we've got an accountant here, a billionaire accountant. Now, whether an accountant can make be a billionaire, that's up for debate how we get to that money. But the fact is, if you've got that amount of money and you are an accountant, you should be good with figures. How on earth the club has got in this position? Well, we can see how the club's got in this position. It's just really, really, really bad recruitment, stupid contracts, getting held to ransom by, clubs like Swansea, who, fair enough, absolutely rinsed us for Sigurdsson. And, if a club's stupid enough to pay that and pay the wages, well, then this is the sort of end game, isn't it? It's been 5-6 years in the making now, this, and it's horrible to see it come to a head, particularly come to a head in the position we're in the league. You know, if we weren't in relegation trouble, you could think, well, we're going to be in the Premier League next season. The new TV deal will kick in. Things might sort of even out because you can see the club are trying to sort of like get rid of players, get wages off the books. You seem to be doing that relatively successfully. Another load of players will come off the books in the summer. But it's just the threat of relegation, and that will be an absolute disaster because we miss this next sort of tranche of TV money then. And you just kind of think, well, where do we go from there? Yeah, it feels very Sunderland in the making, doesn't it?
Yeah, without that kind of cash coming in from the Premier League revenue as well, that is terrifying, isn't it? But we'll leave it there. Let's move on to talk about some on-pitch stuff and potentially an upbeat topic, if you want to frame it like that, because we've had a few nice performances from some of the lads over the international break. Obviously, Richarlison scored 3 and 2 for Brazil. Jordan Pickford was excellent and man of the match for England against Switzerland over the weekend. But I think the one that sort of triggered the most debate online, Pete, is Nathan Patterson, isn't it? Who has played a couple of football matches for the first time in a while. Did very well in the game I saw against Poland when they played last week in the friendly. Didn't see the match against Austria, but apparently he started and played really well in that one. And listen, it's obviously a different environment. It's still a high level because it's international football. They're playing decent sides in Poland and Austria. But from the clips that you've seen of this lad and the performances that we've seen from him so far, it just feels like he's just got potentially something a little bit different and something that this team's really lacking. And for me, it just makes the decision from Lampard to hold him back at this point when none of the other fullbacks have performed particularly well. Just very, very peculiar.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest mystery. The fact is, if we were playing okay and we were grinding out results and we were keeping clean sheets and you know we were looking solid at the back, then you could say, well, you know, let's bed him in slowly and give him time to adapt to maybe the pace of the league. But he hasn't even had minutes to be able to even attempt to adapt to the pace of the league. You know, whether it was something to do with his fitness when he first arrived at the club, I'm not sure. But looking at him on the international stage, he looks, you know, he's getting up and down the pitch all game. He looked absolutely fantastic. I'm not saying that he's going to, you know, necessarily light the Premier League on fire, but certainly when you've got a young player, if you're in a bit of a relegation scrap as we are now, sometimes you just need a bit of a spark and a young kid playing without fear, someone who's gonna actually have a run at fullbacks and go on the overlap and just a bit of an unknown for the opposition to play against. I think it's surely now is the time to actually give him some minutes. Obviously, I think Lampard's probably reluctant to do it because of Seamus Coleman. He sees him as a big influence in the squad. But we've seen Coleman's waning influence in terms of what happens on the pitch for a number of seasons now. You know, I love Seamus. I think he's been a fantastic servant for Everton Football Club. I do think we need leaders in the side, but at the same time, at some point, you've got to take the chance and you've got to bring this young lad in. Like you say, he's gone away and performed for Scotland under a lot of pressure. You know, he's going away with his national team. He hasn't been playing first team football. He's moved to a new club. He's probably expected a lot more minutes than he's got, which is none in the Premier League. He's had 45 minutes in the cup game. He's gone to Scotland, and you know he's stood up to the test, and he's looked brilliant. So I personally want to see him in the side. I think now is the time to give him a run. But again, it's whether Lampard thinks that the Coleman's influence as the captain is more important, and he sees him as an asset in a relegation scrap. My personal opinion is throw Patterson in.
I think it's weird, Les. I think there's a few interesting things around this, and Pete's mentioned one of them in regards to the leadership that Coleman brings. But I suppose if you're going to play this weird back three system we've been playing, potentially you could play Coleman as the third centre back and Patterson. But you know, that's sort of by the by. But you do sort of look at the team at the moment and the personnel in there and the fixture we've got coming up in particular. And I think with Patterson, maybe as much as I agree with Peter and I want to see him in the side, just sort of feel like the chance to blood him is gone a little bit now, because we've had home games against Brentford in the Cup, against Leeds in the league, Wolves and Newcastle in the league. We've had the home cup game against Boreham Wood as well. Now we've got two really tough away games that are going to be difficult for different reasons, and some tricky home games coming up as well. And it just feels as though if Lampard was going to get him in the side, then he would have had a look at him in one of those home games properly and not took him off after 45 minutes against Boreham Wood. You might have even brought him on for the last 10 minutes against Palace when we were 4-0 down to just have a little bit of a look at him that day as well. It sort of feels as though if he was going to start looking towards this lad, as much as we all want him in the team and think he can add something a bit different, that he would have probably done it already.
Yeah, I say it does feel like a missed opportunity there, doesn't it? You know, he has had several chances to play him and he hasn't. I think the thing for me, it's a tricky one. We obviously don't know what he's like defensively. We don't really know what he'd be like in the Premier League defensively. So as you say, Matt, those games he could have played him would have given us a bit of a better idea about that. Obviously, he looks great as an outball, which is something we've missed. Sort of, you know, Cole's been deteriorating each year. And, you know, he's not the sort of outball that he once was, even though sometimes in some games he just seems to pull it from nowhere, doesn't he? Goes bombing down the line still. Patterson would be good at doing that. But I think for me, this team is pretty devoid of any attacking impetus at the minute. And, you know, with the creative players gone or missing, I think that the thing we've got to concentrate on is just not conceding. So I think for me, I've said this before, probably on air, probably boring people to death with it, but I think I would go to the sort of Ancelotti/Walter Smith style of 4 centre-backs across the back four. Just to try and shore that up. I mean, it worked for Ancelotti last year. He clearly said to them, clearly looked at them and thought, you're all pretty limited here. So just go out and just defend, just be solid in that back four. Now, obviously, we've not got Mina. So I think I'd give Branthwaite a go in there, potentially. You know, that in itself is a risk, but I think the priority for me has got to be stop conceding goals and then see what we can do going forward, because we have still got that sort of, you know, we can still spring a quick counter attack. We just don't seem to be doing it at all. You know, we've got Calvert-Lewin back, we've got Richarlison in there. We have got the players who can, you know, can spring a fast attack. But I think until we stop conceding goals, I think we're a bit knackered. Because you see, when we concede a goal, what happens? You know, Palace were the better team until they scored. And then they score a goal, a dead routine goal, which is something the players should be looking at. He's thinking, what have you just done there? Right, let's get back on with it. And he didn't. He collapsed. So we can't afford to concede goals. I think that's got to be the priority. So as much as I would like to see him come in, I can see why he wouldn't be brought in, and he wouldn't be my preference now. I think I'd go with Holgate, Branthwaite, Keane, and Godfrey as a really sort of our last back line.
The meathead back four returns.
Pretty much, yeah. It does just worry me the fact that, you know, we're not.
Do you know what's mad about what you said there, though?
What's that?
Do you know what's mad about what you said there, though, in regards to the change in style? I think this is right, but in our last 7 games against top flight opposition, we've scored 1 goal, and that was at Woes against, obviously against Newcastle in the 99th minute, and that's Everton trying to play a more on the front foot, high pressure brand of football, isn't it? You know, that is a bit scary, well, really.
This is where he needs to ditch that back three as well, because that's not that, especially 3-4-3. That's not a position you can just drop on a team and say play this, because there's no fullbacks. If you play like a 5-3-2, so it's essentially 5 at the back, you've got the fullbacks who first and foremost defend, but they can bomb on to help the attack. When you're playing 3-4-3, you've got 2 midfielders either side, which you need attacking players, they're not defenders. I think it just leaves it wide open, as Palace saw, because they were just ripping down the wings. This is where I'm getting a little bit concerned with Frank Lampard. I know it's very early and he's all sorts of feeling his way around, but he hasn't really got the luxury of time to do that. He needs to stop being cute with it. You know, because I mean, against Palace, it's easy with hindsight, but it was suicidal. The same with Tottenham, the same with Wolves, a team who play that every week. I just think he's got to get it back to basics with the team and just put out the most solid team he can and just see if we can grind results like Newcastle.
Yeah, it's desperate times when we're pining for the Walter Smith days, isn't it?
Oh God, yeah.
the 6 centre-backs on the pitch and all that. But I know what you mean. It just feels like they're not very good at either, because Benitez tried to shut up shop a little bit, didn't he? And we couldn't do it that. We tried to be more attacking. We can't really do that. But just let's move it on to Sunday's game then. West Ham away, Pete. You know, you were saying before that you're going down there. I think it's going to be a really tricky game, isn't it? You know, you can't sit here as the worst away team in the Premier League and say it's not going to be a tricky game at the moment. You know, and they look excellent, don't they? They've got a really good thing going on down there for the first time in a while. It feels like West Ham's a happy, upbeat place to be. They're in the quarterfinals of the Europa League, and you know, their side, which they've got at the moment, is very resemblant of the latter years Moyes Everton teams, I think, isn't it? You know, it's steel, they're solid in there. You know they're going to be able to beat them. You know they're going to graft, but they've just got that sprinkling of something in the final third, which makes them dangerous as well.
Absolutely, and like you've just said about the latter years of David Moyes at Everton, they certainly do remind me of that, and they seem to have a togetherness in that squad. The fans are on board. They're playing some very good football, but they can grind out results as well. I think it's a very, very tough test for us. Certainly not one that I'm looking forward to, but obviously our fans are going to go down there and give it their all. At the moment, I look at Everton. We just need to get results from somewhere. We need something where it's not just about, you know, I'm not bothered about how we play. I'm not bothered about the type of football we play. We just need results, whether it's to grind out a 0-0 draw. We just need something. But I just think that West Ham, they're on such a high at the moment. They've obviously, you know, they're doing well in Europe. They've got quality all over the pitch as well, and they're very, very hard to break down. And like you say, we're struggling to score. We're conceding too many. We're struggling to score, whereas they're, you know, doing very well defensively, and they've got goal scorers all over the pitch. So, yeah, it's going to be a very, very tough test. Would you
go down the same route that Les was sort of mapping out there in regards to being very defensive? And because I think for me, I don't really mind which way he goes, whether he goes all out attack or he goes, you know, completely defensive. But it feels like now, after changing so much over the last few weeks, that he needs to settle on a system and give players a chance to get used to the system and get used to the players around them, and settle on approach as well, which is whether that's, you know, going on the front foot and trying to attack teams, or sitting off and trying to be cohesive and be defensive. Because it feels like we're changing our approach and our tactics and our personnel every single week at the moment.
It does, yeah. And I think as well, you know, the fact that our back four has changed that many times as well. We haven't had a settled back four all season, to be honest. We've tried different people at left back and right back. We've had three at the back. We've had four at the back. We do just need to settle on a system now. And also one of the other issues we've had is that our centre of midfield has chopped and changed that many times. We need to have a settled side, and it's imperative that we start that we do that. I do think we need a solid back four. I think we, you know, in terms of, I mean, I was saying about Patterson earlier on. You know, I'd like to see him play, if not necessarily starting games. I'd like to see him getting some game time. But yeah, I mean, we need to have a settled side now. And the midfield, the centre of midfield is key as well, because we've been overrun so many times this season in that centre of midfield. Decore, for me, although he's got the legs, I think he massively, you know, he's a massive concern for me when we've only got two in midfield, and the same goes for Alan. I personally want to see three in that midfield, four at the back, and go from there. We need to be solid. We need to, as I say, start grinding out results. It's not about how we play. It's purely about getting results now.
Yeah, and you know, Pete mentioned that midfield there, Les. Is it time to turn to Fabian Delph again? Who's been doing scorpion kicks by the looks of it in training. I seen his picture on the official site earlier in the week. I mean, we can laugh and we can joke and we can shake our heads or whatever, but with Alan suspended and, you know, with effectively no other holding midfielder in the squad, I wouldn't be surprised if he started at all on Sunday.
He's got to, hasn't he? There's literally no other option. As Pete said, you know, we need three in that midfield because we have bought midfielders consistently who can't play in the two. You know, it's not really a very modern thing, is it, now, to have two midfielders playing in the centre of the park, sort of Reed and Bracewell-esque, or even Horn and Ebrel or Horn and Parkinson. It's not like you don't get the two midfielders like that, do you? So yeah, I think we do need to play a three, and you know, you don't want to keep going back to the Fabian Delph well, but sometimes, as you say,
you probably fall in it.
You probably would, yeah. But the thing is, he. Oh God, when was the last time he played? The only one I remember was Wolves when he played.
He played really well, didn't he? He came on in that game and did really well.
Yeah.
Did he play against Spurs at home?
I think so, yeah.
Good game that day as well.
Yeah.
I think it was City away was the last game he maybe played. We got beat.
Yeah, I think basically we've got to play him when he's fit, haven't we? No, there's no other option. And to be honest, I think even if we had a sort of fully fit midfield now, which would be, it doesn't matter about the cup, does it? Cup time. So I suppose you want to go with Alan van der Beek and Decore, ideally. But then I think the next man to come in there, if any of those don't play, it's got to be Elf, really, provided he's fit. The big question for me, though, what are we doing with Delhi?
Well, I mean, that's sort of what I was going to lead on to next. There's a lot of talk about Patterson having not started the game for us. Yeah, but he's been an Everton player for 2 months now, and he's not been named in any 11 so far, Ali.
It seems like he was bought because he was available. Which, do you know what? I suppose if we make 10 million on him in the summer and basically have Spurs kicks down, so long as we stay up, it doesn't really matter, does it? In the scheme of things, it just seems like the sort of position he plays isn't one that we ever play.
Yeah,
it's like, where does he fit in? So even if we were playing like 3-4-3, I suppose there's a case to say you could have him like as one of the front three, so sort of 3-4-1-2 sort of thing. But he's not even tried that. He's just never really seemed to fit in. And when he has come on, I think that one ball to Rondon aside, was that when we were walloping Leeds? Was that game, or was it? Yeah, that's pretty much all we've seen of him. He's kind of laboured through the games he's been on. So just a really odd one for me. Just don't know how he fits.
Yeah, I think there were 2 signings, weren't there, in the January that we shake our heads at probably, with El Ghazi as well. El Ghazi hasn't had any minutes. I think we all know that the El Ghazi deal was more of a sweetener, with the Luca Dean, going to Villa, a little bit of a handshake with an agent maybe, but certainly for Dele Alli, for me, do you know what? Do you know the thing about Dele Alli? He's only 20. What is he? 25, 26?
5, yeah.
He reminds me of when we signed David Ginola. Remember when we signed David Ginola and he was like 34, and we all knew in theory he was a great player. We'd seen all, for years that he'd been a great player for Tottenham, for Newcastle, even at Villa when he was a little bit older. He was still a handy player. Dele Alli looks like a 36-year-old Dele Alli. He is, when I see him actually on the pitch, which we haven't seen very often, he just doesn't look like he's got the legs that he used to. And whether that's a fitness thing, whether, maybe I'm being harsh on him because he hasn't had, that much game time. But I look at him and just think he just doesn't seem to have that spark that he used to have. Again, whether that's fitness, whether it's confidence. But he's 25. He should be chomping at the bit. He should be coming to Everton and demanding a place in that side. He should be coming from Tottenham, thinking this is my chance to reinvigorate my career, to relaunch my career. Everton are in a scrap. They need players to step up to the plate. Dele Alli should be demanding a place in that side. And unfortunately, from what I've seen of him, yeah, he doesn't look like a 25-year-old Dele Alli to me.
I think it's just been quite typical of Everton's recruitment, hasn't it? Over the last 5 years, a decent player becomes available, we go in for him. Selling club goes, go on, then yeah, you can have him. We're like, sound right? What we're going to do with him now? It's just very sort of typical of the last 5 or 6 years, hasn't it?
This is surely what happens, isn't it? And the situation we're in now is what happens when you sack your director of football in December, sell one of your best players because he's fallen out with the manager, bring in replacements that the manager wanted, and then sack that manager, and then wait 2 weeks to bring in a replacement a day before the transfer win. This is the collateral from that, isn't it? This is where you end up with players and you think, well, why is he here? And how does he fit into all this? Because over the space of a couple of months, they've changed the recruitment strategy probably 3 or 4 times and brought in 3 or 4 different players during that time frame.
This is why those accounts. This is why those accounts are absolutely no surprise to me. When you look at how the football club is run, literally, let's get rid of one of our best players because he fell out with the manager, then sack that manager a few days later. And people wonder why we're in such a bad financial position when people are running the club like that.
Heavy enthusiasm music's on loop.
I mean, the El Ghazi one, I was watching a bit of that debate thing that Gary Neville did yesterday, and he didn't even know he'd signed for Everton. Like, it's one of those deals that people like, has he gone to you? I didn't even know.
He's got to be in that sort of that 11 with Anthony Gardner and that, isn't he?
Yeah, the players you forgot played for your team, 11.
Yeah,
but it's mad. It's mad. But I mean, I won't ask for predictions for Sunday because of. I don't want it to be too downbeat. But there's a couple of things I wanted to get your opinion on, lads. We'll finish off by speaking about what's going on with the women's team. But just one other point that came out today. It's going to affect everyone in the Premier League. The decision has been ratified from next season. We're going to have 5 subs in every game. The 5 subs will be able to be made in spells at half time, and then 3 separate spells between the games. So you can basically make 2 subs, 1, and then 2 or 3, 1, 1, etc., etc. Feels like a few teams have changed their mind on this after the initial one vote for it was, sort of played down last year. It obviously puts the Premier League in line with the rest of Europe who've been doing it as well. What do you make of it, Pete? It's one of them. I'm not dead angry about it, but I don't really like the idea, first and foremost, of changing half your starting 11 effectively in regards to outfield players. That in itself feels a bit weird. I don't like that there's going to be more stoppages. Obviously, there'll still be free slots to make changes, but they'll be getting filled up more often. So the game's going to be a bit more broken up and a bit more disjointed. And I don't really like the fact that this is ultimately going to benefit the 3 teams in the league at the moment that have got ridiculous squads, ridiculous resources, and are going to be able to tap into that even more.
Well, that's the final point is the main one for me, is the fact that the teams who have been most vocal about this and the managers who've been most vocal about wanting 5 substitutions, it's not the managers at the bottom of the league, it's the managers at the top of the league. And they're saying that they're fighting on all fronts and all this sort of thing. Well, the only way you can redress the balance slightly is if you play when you're playing against the bigger teams. If you're scrapping at the bottom and you can't afford to have a squad which is full of international players, then the only way you can redress the balance slightly is the fact that they might have a few tired players on that pitch. Now, if they're able to bring on 5 international players all of a sudden, and then the likes of Burnley, even us, there's times last season and this season where we've had to name 2 goalkeepers on the bench. We haven't had enough players to be able to make 5 substitutions. And I personally think it's all down to just going along with whatever those big, Sky 6, whatever those teams want. He who shouts loudest gets what they want, and in the end. And we all know who the biggest culprit for that would be one of our neighbours over the park, who was cried his way into getting his way. But I can't see it benefiting anyone other than those top teams. I just think, like you say, if you can change half your team midway through a game, if you're a team that's set out to play a certain way, knowing that the team that you're going to face, and you're doing a great job and you're keeping them out, and then all of a sudden, throughout the course of the game, they can bring on 5 substitutions and completely change the way they set up. I just think it's sporting integrity is out of the window.
Yeah. You've certainly made the Scab 6 pay for that Super League nonsense.
Yeah.
They've given them effectively guaranteed Champions League football with this new UEFA regulation, and now they can use those squads to the heart's content.
Yeah, it does. It's getting more and more pointless as it goes on, isn't it? This has been brought in under the sort of guise of player welfare. Well, if they're worried about player welfare, just cut the number of games. Stop playing so many stupid European games. Don't have the teams dropping from the Champions League to the Europa League to the conference.
The 2-legged League Cup semi-final is a mad one. Just make it one game.
Yeah,
that's not needed.
Yeah, just cut all the pointless games that are in there. Because as Pete said, there's no integrity in it now. Really, there's just the sporting integrity is completely going. When you look at they're trying to lock in those teams in the Champions League, by basically saying, "Oh yeah, if you won it a few times in the past, come on in," kind of thing. So they're doing that. Then there's the whole farce that's been for years about dropping from one competition to the next. That's a load of shite. That should go. There's just loads of games, and the fans of these teams don't really seem to mind these games. Because the clubs are making money off it. They're getting to see their team play. They're being successful, so they haven't got this thing whereby they're dreading every single game that comes along. They can't wait for the next one. So I think it's a bit wrong to bring it in as a sort of player welfare issue, and especially when you've got an expanded World Cup coming up, the qualifiers and everything's going to be more. There's just more and more and more football. It's reaching saturation point. You don't care about the players. There's absolutely no player welfare thing in this at all because they're just flogging them till they're dead. Basically, it's just becoming pointless and more disillusioning. Bring on the sweet release of the Championship. That's what I say.
Well, don't they have 5 subs as well already?
Oh, sod it. Start watching cricket or something.
Oh yeah, well, England are awful in that, so maybe not. But no, yeah. If you've got thoughts on that, let us know at the Blue Room ESC on Twitter. I think it's obviously quite a divisive topic, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But 6 substitution slots, VAR.
Rolling subs like in kids footy.
Yeah. How many goalkeepers will be able to name on the bench then at that point? Will one of them actually get on? Let's see. But let's wrap up by having a chat about what's going on with Everton Women. Pete had a great win on March 12th against Leicester, 3-2. And then since then, they've had a brutal run of fixtures and a brutal run of results. They've got beat 3-0 alone by Chelsea, consecutive 4-0 losses to Manchester City, including one in the FA Cup. And then Old Trafford on Sunday, they lost 3-1 after going ahead. I watched a bit of the game against United at least, and it felt like after, City and Chelsea are obviously on ridiculous levels at the moment in the women's game, but it felt like there were a few more positives from that performance, on what was a massive occasion for a lot of the girls playing in a stadium like that.
Absolutely. I mean, the results don't necessarily tell the full tale for me. I think the first game against Man City, we were well beaten. The second game, I thought that we actually, showed a far better performance from the girls. I think the Manchester United game at the weekend, it was such a big occasion for them to play. I think the estimated crowd was over 20,000. I think it was 28,000 sold and about 21,000 actually turned up. But the occasion was fantastic for the girls to actually play in that stadium. We started off on the front foot. We got an early goal. Unfortunately, it was one of those things where we scored, and we all sort of looked at each other, and once you finish celebrating, then you look at each other and think, how long's left? And it was like 3 minutes in, and you think, oh no, it's too early.
It's like Sahara in the FA Cup final all over again.
Yeah.
Oh, it's only 25 seconds gone.
Yeah.
Do you remember that one of those, that Old Trafford one where we got beat 5-1 and Solskjaer scored 4?
Yeah.
We went ahead that early. We're like, hang on a minute.
Yeah, it was one of those things, and then you're thinking, I'll just hold out till half time. How long's left? Couple of minutes till half time. 20 minutes gone, and it was just, just one of those games that sort of dragged on, and you knew that the more the game went on, the more pressure that Man United had put on, and the crowd got right behind them. But overall, the performance from the players was superb. I think certainly since Chris Roberts has come in, the players have looked a lot more settled. We've looked a lot more of a jet. The team have gelled. We've managed to get some players back from injury as well, which has helped. But it's that thing about having a settled side. We've gone all season where we haven't really been able to settle on a formation, on a starting 11. I still don't know what our best 11 would be, to be honest with you. It's been one of those seasons. We've made so many signings in the summer, and I almost feel like we did too much business in the summer. There was too much. It unsettled the squad. I think it took us so long to sort of gel as a squad. But certainly the results over the last few weeks don't tell the full story in terms of the performances. I think certainly the individuals like Gabby George and Meg Finnegan can be proud of their performances, even though we've conceded, a lot of goals. Our 2 centre-halves have been superb. So, there are still a lot of positives to take. And I think that it's a huge summer for us in terms of getting a new manager in and sorting out the recruitments. We've got a lot of players out of contract as well. So the sooner a new manager comes in, the better. But I still see positive signs there. I still see that there's the nucleus of a really good side. It's just a case of getting the team to gel properly and settling on a formation and to pick up some results before the end of the season.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you about in regards to the manager. Obviously, Chris Roberts has come in. Is there any sense that he might get the job on a long-term basis? Is there anyone out there that's available, or you think Everton could get that you'd like to see them go for?
Firstly with Chris Roberts, I think Chris is a great person. He's been at Everton for a while now, because he came as Willie Kirk's assistant, and Chris has always been someone who. He's always been great with the fans, with the supporters. He's always had a lot of time for the supporters. He loves Everton Football Club as well. He's from Scotland originally, but I think he's got a real affinity with Everton Football Club now. I'd love nothing more than to see Chris given a go, to be honest. I think he has done well. Certainly with all the upheaval this season. He's been a shining light in the management team who's really stepped up and really has tried to get those players going, and the players do like him. You can see that just in the way they play and the way they respond to him. I haven't heard him necessarily put his name in the hat. I think he's treating it as a short-term thing. My personal choice, if I could pick anyone, I would like Carla Ward from Aston Villa. I think she's a very good young manager. She did a great job at Sheffield United. She did very well for Birmingham City under very hard conditions last season and kept them in the league. And they look certain to go down now. She's done a good job at Aston Villa this season. Whether or not we could actually prize her away from Villa, I think that's doubtful. But if there was an opportunity to go and get Carla Ward, she would be my personal choice. But if Chris Roberts were to stay, I think we've just got to back him. I think, as I say, he's got the right mentality. If the players like him, he loves the club. He ticks a lot of boxes for me.
And Carla Ward must have a thick skin as well. If she's gone from Birmingham to Aston Villa, so
oh yeah,
right in at Everton. Just one more thing on the women's game, and I'll bring you back in here, Les. It was unbelievable scenes at the Camp Nou last night, when they're in regards to Barcelona, Real Madrid in the Women's Champions League. I think that the 91,000 is obviously a record for the women's game, but also the highest attendance of any football match anywhere in Europe this season. It was incredible to see, wasn't it? The atmosphere, the chemistry between the players and the fans in there, and it's just an amazing incentive, isn't it, for all girls out there and all women out there who want to get involved in that game, that the heroes are there and they're getting that kind of platform and that kind of adulation.
Yeah, it is really good to see. So, like, as I never shut up about it, do coaching a Hoylake, and their girls set up now it's fantastic. In the last couple of years, it's gone from like one team to about 10 teams now. I think they've got a team at least one team in each age group now for youth football, kids football. So it's good to see things like that. People sort of taking it seriously now, not like just the women playing and sort of brushing it off as like some sort of sideshow. People really taking it seriously, and girls need these role models in football. It's all very well them playing football themselves, and then just seeing the men's game. There's not going to be that connection there, is there? You need someone you can look up to who's sort of been through what you've been through, your circumstances and that. So yeah, it's amazing to see it. It's good to know that, like, all those girls who are coming through a Hoylake, they've got women's football to watch. That's a good standard, and people are taking it seriously and watching it, and they're good role models for them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Pete, you're involved in the supporters club and know a lot of the players and all that really well. I mean, I imagine that's something they would have been talking about all day today, wouldn't it? What happened in Catalonia last night?
Absolutely, and certainly on social media, just about every player's posted about it. I think it is so exciting for those players. They've just come off the weekend. They've just stepped on the pitch at Old Trafford, so they've experienced a good atmosphere themselves. A big crowd, but to see 90-odd thousand at the Camp Nou is phenomenal. And with the Euros coming up this summer as well, I know that the final at Wembley sold out, pretty much straight away. So they're expecting a huge crowd for that. So it's great to see that the women's game is getting better attendances, and like Les says, it's so important for young kids to be able to look up to their heroes and to be able to see themselves in their heroes, because that's their role models. When they can see someone who looks like them doing something that they love, it's so important for a young kid to have those types of role models, and that's certainly something that we see with the supporters club. We've been trying very hard this season, even on the back of bad results. We've been trying really hard to get the atmosphere going at Walton Hall Park. One of our big aims for this season was to make sure that we had chance for every player, that we were trying to build the atmosphere. It tended to be very quiet at Southport, possibly because of the distance. There was almost like a bit of a people almost seem nervous to chant. It was just a lot of it is about changing the mentality that no, this is a football game. We're here to support the players. We're here to build up an atmosphere. And to see that at the Camp Nou last night was fantastic. And certainly Walton Hall Park doesn't quite hold that many people, but we are trying our best to try and get the atmosphere going, and to see the reaction from the fans around us, and to see the atmosphere building every time we go, and to see the kids getting involved and enjoying themselves. It's it makes it all worthwhile for us as a supporters club.
Definitely. You could probably get 90,000 on that little hill at the side, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not in these days, social distance, but...
We've named it Simone McGill.
Oh, marvellous. Absolutely marvellous. Wonderful stuff. But no, lovely to finish on a positive anyway with what happened over in Barcelona last night. Fingers crossed the lads can follow suit on Sunday. And obviously, Pete, you're travelling everywhere this weekend, mate. You're going away tomorrow night as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going to Birmingham tomorrow, so to watch the women. So looking forward to that game. I think it's Birmingham right at the bottom of the league, so I'm hoping for 3 points there, and then get home and then travel down to London on Sunday as well, all over the place.
Insane. I don't know how you do it. But yeah.
I don't know why I do it, to be honest.
Well done to anyone like Pete doing both of those journeys. But yeah, that's it. That's been your weekly this week. We'll have all usual stuff over on the Blue Room Extra if you want your weekend preview, mailbag, and subs weekly building up to that game against West Ham at the weekend. Cheers for tuning in. Hope you enjoy what's left of your week, and up the Toffees. Fingers crossed they can do the business on Sunday.